Hello, beautiful people. In this episode of the podcast, I had the privilege of talking to Ondra Němčík, or otherwise known as Robo-Humanist on Instagram. Ondra is an online coach, he's a digital nomad, and he's an entrepreneur, and he helps his clients deal with severe social anxiety and confidence issues. So if you're someone who's struggling to get out of your shell, to engage in the real world proactively, or if you're looking to start a new business, but don't feel like you have the know-how or the confidence to go out there and chase your dreams, then this is going to be the episode for you. So if that sounds like you, stay tuned and let's get into the episode. Welcome, Ondra, to the Positive Regression Podcast.
Thank you. I suppose the first bit to so that everybody kind of knows who you are and what you do and why we're talking, really. Do you want to just tell everyone what it is that you do, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm a business and social health coach. So I help people basically on two levels. One level is mental health and social anxiety and social confidence. And then the other level is helping people start their own business. Mostly online. A lot of them tend to end up being in coaching as well, or some sort of courses or content creation. Because that's the people I attract, because that's what the business that I started there for, right?
It's what you started before.
Yeah, because I started coaching, just social anxiety. And, this is how you can make friends. This is how you can be less anxious in social situations. This is how you can communicate and that kind of stuff. And then once I've been doing that for a few years, I was like, hey, I think I want to teach the business mindset as well. I want to talk about helping people start businesses and becoming digital nomads and, creating more freedom.
This is just a natural.
So yeah, it was like a addition.
Yeah.
To later, yeah.
Are they is it sort of the same people that you're then teaching? Because I can imagine that there's kind of an arc there for somebody who starts out being maybe anxious and not putting themselves out there. Once they've overcome that side of things, maybe they're looking for the next step. Do you find that there's also the same sort of people that you were coaching with the anxiety are now interested in starting businesses, or is it completely...
No, it is always very interconnected, and I think that was one of the challenges with the front end marketing, that some people would get confused and some people got it, but you're talking about business and mindset, but you're also talking about social anxiety. That doesn't make much sense. But really, the people who end up working with me and who stick around the longest, they know that they want to start a business, they want to have a freedom, they want to travel the world, but they're way too anxious. They don't even have friends, so they don't even know how to talk to people. So a lot of them already know that, I want to start a business maybe 5 years later, but first I have to address this.
Yeah.
Right. And then some people don't know that they want to start a business. I just want to make friends. Maybe they never start a business, but they just want to do a level 1 coaching, right? With social anxiety. And then some people already, I'm good. I've mostly overcome that, or I never really had big problems with that. But when it comes to business, I feel like I'm not good enough to do business, or I don't know what I'm doing and whatnot. So it's some people go for the whole thing, some people go only on one side, and some people only on the other.
I suppose also a lot of people don't necessarily realize if they're really focused on, or if they're stuck trying to overcome anxiety, they're not even thinking about what else they could achieve, because they're just here in their own sort of cell, their own prison. And I suppose once they break out of that, that's when maybe the light bulb goes on. Oh, well, if I can overcome that, what's stopping me now from doing the next big thing?
Yep.
Which might be starting an online business.
And then their brain kind of opens up, right? Okay, I'm free of this anxiety. I'm free of this big challenge. What's next? Ondra, the guy who helped me, overcome my anxiety, he went on to start a business and travel the world. That seems amazing. I'm going to try and do that as well. So it can be a natural progression. I've also seen it the other way. I really want to start a business, and I don't know, I'm going about anxiety. I don't have problems with confidence. And then, we talk, I'm like, yeah, you have a social anxiety problem. And that's what we have to address first as well. Because a lot of, in business, you need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to, even doing sales and marketing, you need to have a highest level of confidence.
Yeah.
And people don't. And they don't realize that that's what they need. So they sign, I want to start a business to learn what I have to do. And then oh, yeah, but we have to talk about your social anxiety as well.
Yeah, I suppose that facing rejection is one of the hardest things on a person level, but it's the same in business. If you're putting a proposal forward, or if you're trying to start something, you've got to deal with rejection all the time. So it's the same sort of skill set, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose that means that for the business coaching side of things, you're perfectly situated because you've already done the anxiety coaching. And maybe for people out there that don't know yet, what's your background with regards to overcoming anxiety? Is that something that you've actually had to deal with yourself?
Yes.
What capacity? How did that?
Bad. It was bad, in the beginning. So when I was around 12, 13, that's where it was like the peak. Getting bullied in school, parents yelling at each other, yelling at us all the time, right? So as the two environments that you have as a young teen or as a kid, school and house, both of them kind of sucked, right? And so it caused really bad social anxiety and depression, and I was just thinking about killing myself because I just hated it. I didn't want to be myself anymore. I hated my life. I hated myself. I hated that I couldn't stand up to myself, for myself. I hated that I cannot speak to people. And I was also just overall lost, meaningless. What is the point of any of this? So, right. And then two things happened. Well, one thing happened and one thing I did. One thing I don't remember how, but I literally just discovered videos of random acts of kindness, like this montages,
Yes.
And it was just a video named Restoring Hope in Humanity. And it was a montage, like maybe 10 minutes. It was just people doing random acts of kindness. And small things to bigger things, like running into a building that's on fire or just helping somebody across the street. And I was watching it and I was just crying my eyes out, after school. And it made a profound impact on me because back then, like in that environment and with struggling so much mentally, it felt like people are evil, the world is awful, everybody's out to get me. I always have to be anxious because everybody's, trying to hurt.
Always defensive, always looking for the next attacker sort of thing.
And then they showed me that there are actually really beautiful and amazing people out there. And maybe I just need to find them and try and become one of them so that, I hang out with these people, not with these people that I'm hanging out with now.
So you even back then, in your early teens, you were thinking, I need to become like that. The kind of person, you're starting to envision yourself as the kind of person who would help others.
Yeah. So it really, that gave me the hope and the direction, right? Because I was like meaningless, hopeless. And then that showed me, okay, there are amazing people out there. And okay, well, I just gotta go find them. And I also made the connection of like, okay, if I'm a bad person or if I'm a dickhead, right? And I'm not working on myself, I'm not really, doing my disciplines, they're not gonna want to hang out with me even if I find them, right? So I'm like, okay,
Quite wise.
I have to become one of them, right? And so then how can I become one of them? And that became like a big beacon, right? And it was a big part of why I didn't end up ending my own life.
Yeah.
Because, at least I had a direction and I had a positive future to work towards and to work on, to go towards.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, okay, now I have this little bit of hope. I have some motivation. I know kind of, somewhere out there.
But you have a rough direction
Right.
where you're headed, right?
But I'm like, but I'm still stuck here. I'm still getting bullied. Life still sucks at home. I still can't talk to people, right? Like nothing really changed. It's just like, okay, now I kind of know what I want to do. So I went on Google and I just Googled how to be happy. And I Googled how to be confident. And then, I probably couldn't tell you much of what exactly I read. I remember that it was the website WikiHow.
Okay.
That was first like 5 steps to be happy. I'm like reading, I'm like, what? There's like actually steps to be happy? Like this is crazy, right? And so that's how I got introduced into the whole world of personal development and the self-help space. And I got obsessed. Right? Like just, okay, I'm going to start waking up at 5:30 instead of 6:30 in the morning, go for a run. And okay, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to take cold showers. And of course, it's not like I just woke up and since then I was just...
You don't do it all at once.
Right? No.
You just started taking steps.
And I started, I didn't really know that a morning routine was a thing, but I was like, I want to start my day with something that's stronger, right? It's going to make me feel better and stronger. I'm going to go for a run, right? And then that was a little component to it. I felt like I was a really I was the badass who's going for a run in the morning. You know, like nobody else was doing that, but I'm the badass who's going for a run in the morning. And then started building my confidence and my self-esteem, and then I acquired more skills and more knowledge through just being obsessed with learning the videos and reading the books and doing the things, trying them out, not just reading, but actually doing the things. And, you know, within a few years, just started to completely change my life and overcame the anxiety and
You basically became that person that you were trying to be over the time.
right?
You sort of,
And started developing more of my own kind of mindset and philosophy of like, okay, what is the world about and how the world works, how do I want to live and all that.
and that's just from the trial and error of trying out loads of things and seeing what works for you and what you found not so helpful. And is it that's the kind of method now that when you're teaching or you're coaching clients, that's what you apply, is basically working with them using the steps that you've found most helpful or the ones that you've adapted and changed to suit?
Yeah. So I just look back on my journey, right? And of course, try and relate it to their personal situation, because everybody's situation is different, right? So, okay, what's worked the most as like an overarch, the main steps?
Yeah.
And then, okay, how do we adapt those steps to your specific situation? Right? So there might be some key pillars or steps that are the most important things, but not everybody will do the steps in the same way.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't make sense for people to do it in the same way. Like, for example, people don't have to all go for a run. Like for me, going for a run before school was one of the biggest things that I could have done. Right? And it was a huge impact on my mental health, on my confidence, on like everything, and on my discipline and all of it, right?
But for you, it wasn't the run, it was the way that you felt about yourself, knowing that you've done something.
Well, exactly, right? So for me, the vehicle was the run, even though like there's a little underneath it, right?
Yeah.
But the vehicle was the run. But for somebody else, it might be basketball, right? It might be calisthenics. Right. It might be parkour. It might be yoga, right? It might be Pilates. Like it doesn't really matter what the vehicle is. It's what it gives you.
I think that's really important because I think a lot of the time you see online, social media, there's people out there that are saying, oh, you have to go for a run or you have to do this one thing. And people think, oh, that's what it's got to take so that I feel better, but not understanding that it's not about the activity itself but the way that it makes you feel. And so it doesn't matter what activity you pick as long as it's those benefits that we talked about.
So it really becomes, so I started calling this like a confidence building habit as like a principle, right? And again, like there are some things that it has to have in order for it to be effective, where it doesn't have to be a run. If you talk to me and you're like, hey, I really don't know what my confidence building habit should be at all, I'm like, go for a run. Yeah, just do running, even if you hate it at first, like it will actually help.
Right.
If you don't know anything else, if you know something else that you already enjoy, that it makes you feel better, makes you feel like you're proud of yourself, makes you feel stronger physically, mentally, pushes you out of your comfort zone and all that, then go and do that, right? And so not everybody will go for a run. If you come to me and you're like, hey, I really need help, I don't know at all what to do, one of the first things I'm going to recommend is running, because that's what helped me the most, and it's very effective, right?
And it's also just part of that trial and error.
Right? Or it doesn't have to be, right? So it's more so like the confidence building habit, something that's very physical, something that's out of your comfort zone. You have to push yourself to do it, right? You have to stretch the muscle of I really don't feel like doing this, but it's good for me, so I'm gonna do it. Something that makes you feel proud of yourself because of that. And then a little extra bonus if you feel like it's really cool. Like if you can do rock climbing and you think, oh my God, like rock climbers are so cool because it's so impressive, go and learn rock climbing, right? I thought that running in the morning is really badass. So that's what I did,
Did you have, were there people that were running that you kind of emulated, or was it just actually literally just the exercise that you thought was badass? Or were there like sort of heroes in your mind where, I don't know.
At first, it was just from my own, and I've like somewhat enjoyed running a little bit. Running was a big part of our like PE classes.
Okay.
In school, and so I knew that I'm pretty decent at running, and I enjoyed it for at least a little bit. And
Maybe not so much at 5:30 in the morning.
no, no. I especially hated like longer distances. Right? Funny enough, now I love long distances, but yeah, it was more so just doing something that was really simple, but pushed me to the edge of, okay, this is like making me grow, and I feel it in my body. Like I feel it physically that it's making me grow.
So is that one of the first steps that you'd recommend to somebody who's struggling with anxiety or confidence levels, is to pick something that is challenging, that gives them that feeling? How, if somebody's, because I think part of the problem with those of us who've struggled with confidence and a feeling of being good enough is that we know there's lots of things that we should be doing that are going to be good for us, but not having I don't even know what it is, whether it's not the confidence, but the willpower maybe to actually go out and start. Are there any tips that you can give to people that want to go for a run? Let's say in this example, they want to get up and go for a run, but they haven't managed to get themselves to that point. Are there any ways of making it more manageable, or just getting to that place mentally where they are able to put on their shoes and go for a run?
Yeah. Well, one thing is try and pick one thing, right? Like let's say a morning routine, right? Most people kind of get inspired and like, all right, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do a morning routine, right? And then they say, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to come back, I'm going to take a cold shower, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to do this, I'm going to read a chapter of a book, right? And now all of a sudden, instead of from zero, not having any morning routine, they go to having 7 habits in their morning routine, and then maybe do it once, right? And I'm sure I've been there. Absolutely. So, and you go from 0 to 3,000, and then you fail, obviously, right? So one thing is...
It becomes too overwhelming.
Right. Just pick one thing, right? Like for me, it was like, all I care about was running in the morning. Like I didn't care about what I'm going to, like, okay, obviously I come back from a run, so I take a shower. But that's it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't care about reading or meditating in the first stages, right? Like, but after I've been running consistently for a few weeks, I'm like, okay, what else can I do? Right. What else can I add? What else is going to be helpful for me? I have some extra minutes here.
So once you've already got, because you kind of get to that point where you've basically expanded your capabilities, you've internalized that you are now a runner, let's say, or that's just become more or less a habit, and that's when you're able to start looking at the next thing that you can incorporate. Yeah.
So really simplify, right? What's the one thing that you can do? Just get really simple, make it as easy for yourself as possible. Don't layer on 10 different things, just one. And it feels kind of like, oh, but it's not enough. It is enough. And you can, if you can trick your brain a little bit or convince your brain that this is good enough for now, just say, okay, for the next just 1 month, I'm just going to do one thing. Just going to go for a run for a month. After a month, if I want to add something more, great, I can add something more, right? But just at least do the one thing. That's one. So don't layer on many things, just one.
It's like having humility to just accept that you're not. It's funny, we try to tell people, and no doubt you do this as well, that we're capable, or you're capable of so much more than what you're currently doing. But at the same time, at that stage when you're struggling just to do something, you need to accept that that's just where you're at. And it's where you're at right now. It's not where you will be in the future, but just to accept, okay, have the humility to say, this is what I'm capable of right now. It's just to go for a run. Or maybe it's just to put your running shoes on and leave the house. And maybe then you have to come back. Maybe you don't even make it to a run, but just kind of bring it back down to your level of where you are right now.
Yeah.
And accept that that's the starting point. Just be humble.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyway, I interrupted you.
And that would be a great point as well, like kind of atomic habits style, building how to build a habit. Just like some days, just all you have to do, just put on your shoes and take one step.
Yeah.
And you're done with your running habit. You didn't even run, but like the act of going out there and doing the beginning, or most of the time you will actually, if you take the first step of running, you'll actually run a lot longer. But even if you don't, then it's the beginning, right? It's getting yourself out there that you have to focus on trying to automatize.
Maybe that's the behavior. That's also a good thing for the listeners to understand, is that you can sort of trick your brain into, if making the decision to go for a run is too much, if it's too challenging to actually get you to the point of going, okay, I'm going to go for a run, just make the decision to put the shoes on and think about nothing else. Just, okay, I'm just going to put my shoes on, and then after that, I'm done. And if you get to that point, I think there's always the next step after that. Maybe you put your shoes on and you go, well, I've just put my shoes on. I'm not going to just not do anything with it now. But don't think about the next step, because the next step, if you're thinking about all the steps that come after that, that's when it starts to become too overwhelming, and then you don't take the first one. Just bring it forward into the right first step. Shoes on. That's it.
Yep. Yeah. It's great. Take it step by step. Take it easy, right? Of course, it's not going to be easy, so make it as easy as possible for itself. But people tend to make it harder than it has to be, right? By layering on too many things or being like, okay, I have to run at least half an hour. No, you need to run 2 minutes. Yeah. That's it, right? Make it as easy as possible to you to at least start. And then the third one would be actually I think the most important, which is really get clear on why you want to do it. And what's going to happen if you do it, and what's going to happen if you don't do it. So for me, it became relatively easy. Oh, a little intersection here that I forgot. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. You're like, okay, let me ask you a question. Back then, when I said, okay, I'm going to start waking up at 5:30 a.m. and go for a run before school, do you think that like, since that decision, I was just like every day without fail, it was just go and fly run?
I was very impressed if you did, yeah.
Absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
But I did it one day or maybe 2 days, and then I forgot or whatever, drifted away, and then I woke up kind of like a week later or 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh damn, I didn't even go for a marathon for like 2 weeks. Oh, okay, I'm trying to start again and restart and like, keep going until you actually become more consistent, until you make it.
I've got a question about that, because at that point where you'd forgotten, because I know from my own life where I've started a habit and then I've maybe missed a day or a couple of days, it's very easy, or has been for me in the past, to just go, oh, well, I tried. And then you just think, well, because I've broken the habit, or because I've broken the routine, that I know that's not who I am anymore, and therefore I can't restart the habit. Where are you at with your sort of in your mind when you break the routine of what you said you were going to do? How do you get yourself to get back into, okay, no, I'm going to continue to try to meet this goal that I've set myself?
Yeah. I think this is where it really comes down to your motivation and inspiration. But I don't mean motivation in like, I feel motivated to really do this right now. I mean motivation of like, why do you want to do it?
Right.
Right? That's what's really motivating you. And so for me, again, if I use my own example, it was, well, okay, if I do this, then it can save my life. I can build my confidence and do all this. If I don't do this, I'm still going to want to kill myself, and I'm probably going to end up killing myself. I know I don't really want to kill myself. But I can't live like this anymore, right? So it was extreme, and that gives you lots of motivation.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you break this down a little bit more, what motivation, like where does it come from for human beings? 2 things: the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure.
Right.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
So whatever your brain thinks is going to equal pain, it would be motivated to avoid. Whatever your brain thinks it's going to equal pleasure, it will be motivated to gain. And most of the time, the pain will win, right? Right? So for me, it was like, well, if I don't do this, it's going to be a lot of pain. It's going to be really, really painful if I don't do this. So then it became easier to do it and get some of the pleasure because the pain would be so much higher. And it depends on of course, where you are at the moment. Procrastination, I found some of the best, funniest examples, I guess, where you can really see this, is procrastinating on a term paper, right? Like people go and it's like, okay, I have 3 months to do this paper for my school, right? And then you're like, oh, procrastinate. And then it's 3 days before. And all of a sudden you, oh, damn, okay, I have 3 days left. And you do all of the pain, all of the hard work,
right?
To do, you do 2 all-nighters to finish the paper, right? So why? Why did your brain do that? Well, because for the 2 months or for the 3 months, it was more painful to do the work than not to do the work, right? So the pain was more real to you. So that's why it won and you avoided the work. But then you get closer to the deadline. Now, not doing the work because you cannot submit it, that's really, really painful. So now not doing the work became more painful in that moment. So you go through all of that pain of doing all of the hard work in 2 days. So you don't get all of the big pain of not having anything done.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a pain balance. It's not even a pain-pleasure balance a lot of the time. It's just like, okay, which one is more painful, which one is less painful in that moment.
Right. And you had you said something really interesting, which was that it's what the brain perceives as being more painful or less painful, or more pleasurable or less pleasurable. It's not physical pain, although it can turn into that. Are there ways, because I'm sure we've all been in that situation where we've procrastinated and all of a sudden we found the motivation one night before the deadline. Is there a way, because despite everyone having been in that position before, we still procrastinate. Is there a way of changing the way that our brain perceives the pain so that it's more painful at the beginning, for example, not to do the work rather than to wait? Because if it's the way I see it, our brains are very powerful, but sometimes they're in really stupid hands of behavior. But if they're really powerful, and if we believe that our brains are, we believe what our brains are telling us, right? Says, well, it's there's not enough pain here for me to do it. Surely then there's a way of us programming the brain to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, so first thing is like make it conscious. So most people, when we do this, we don't know why.
Right.
And, we don't know what the underlying motivation is. Like, the first time I ever heard pain-pleasure balance or whatever, like, I was like, whoa. It was years and years later, because I was just trying to brute force it, whatever. And then it was like, looking back, I'm like, oh, this is why, and this is how it works, right? So if you want to make a shortcut to make this faster, you can make it conscious. And that's where, like, if you want to make it really practical as well, most of the time, the problem isn't really that we don't understand the pain, pleasure, or we kind of know, right? Or if let's say working out, as an example. If I stay on the couch right now, I know I'm going to have some chill, right? But if I keep staying on the couch for 3 years, I'm going to become really fat and lazy, and I'm going to hate myself. So we know that's what's coming, but your brain gets into the mode of right now, right?
It's not thinking through.
It's not thinking for 3 years later. It's thinking right now, right? It's not thinking pain or pleasure 3 years later. It's thinking pain or pleasure now. And so now the workouts seem more painful than the couch. So I stay on the couch.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can make that conscious, and you can borrow the pain from the future and bring it into your present, right? And so the way you do that is, first, quite literally, just take your journal. If you don't have a journal, get yourself a journal.
Or even if you don't want to get a journal, type it in your phone, but writing is better.
Best, get yourself a journal. Because phone is very distracting and not so effective, but yeah.
Sure.
You don't have to, but of course, journal is one of the best tools for personal growth, right? But anyways, and write, 3 years in the future, the most amazing future that you can imagine, and you can be also specific. Let's say you want to go to the gym, so we make it specific to the gym. And then 3 years in the future, the most awful, like what's the worst possible situation that you can imagine if you never go to the gym, right?
So you're looking at outcomes 3 years in the future. Yeah. Okay.
And you really look at the pleasure, but more important, look at the pain.
Right.
Right? And then if you make yourself live it, right? And not just, I'm going to be fat. But a lot of people also just do, I'm going to be a little bit overweight. No. You're going to be really fat, and you're going to be really lazy, and you're going to get cancer, and you're going to die early. Ooh, that's more pain, right? Don't diminish the pain. Make it as painful as possible. That's the point. It's not comfortable. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be painful. It's supposed to disturb you, right? So make it as vivid and as painful as you possibly can, and then make yourself kind of experience it in a way, right? Like, what is it actually, try and step into that future. Like, how are you going to feel? How is it going to be? How are you going to feel about yourself? How are you going to, when you have that kind of energy, when you have that kind of body, when you have that kind of shame about yourself, and really try and experience the pain in advance.
Yep.
Right? Especially while you're doing it. And that itself can give you a huge boost of motivation. And that will last for a few days, probably. Yeah. They will last for a few days. So then you have to remind yourself, and you can make this, and I literally did this, like I had a mindset wall. So or I had it on my door, or like kind of somewhere where I would see it. And I had the 2 futures laid out, and you can also attach a picture to it. And I have it on my phone these days still. Like I have a painful version of me and like a really enjoyable future, okay, right? So then, because I have all of this associated in my brain, like, oh.
Yeah, you've made the connection between what that photo means.
Exactly. So, and visual is really fast, right? Like your brain understands visuals really fast. Yeah. So my brain has associated that really painful future, the things that I really don't want, to that picture of me being really depressed, working a job that I hate, not having all the discipline, the relationships, the money that I want, right? And then the second photo is the very pleasurable one. Most people make the mistake of just doing a vision board and only trying to get towards the pleasure, and they forget about the pain because that's uncomfortable. I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
But that's what really makes the difference, right? So put the painful one there as well, and look at the painful one more, because that will inspire and motivate you a lot more.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're more motivated to avoid pain than we are to gain pleasure.
Yeah, and if you don't believe that, and it's kind of like, oh, no, I'm a really proactive, positive person. I do things, not because I want to avoid pain, but then if you really look at your behaviors, you really analyze it, you're like, oh yeah. Because that's how the brain works.
Right.
It's more important to avoid pain than to gain pleasure, because that's how you survive. Like literally.
I mean, take that for anybody who's suffering from anxiety or depression or just, sheltering themselves away from the world, right? What are you doing there? You're avoiding the pain of rejection, the possible pain of a rejection. You're avoiding all of that. You're not motivated by the pleasure of what a connection will mean to you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it is the core problem again, is like you're avoiding the short-term pain, but you're getting the long-term pain, which is much bigger, but it's just a little bit delayed.
Yeah.
Right? So you gotta flip those. And then, the funny thing, what happens is, and people who really work out a lot and consistently for years, they will say, I really love the gym. I really enjoy it. How is that even possible, right? Like, and some people will tell you, I used to hate the gym and now I love it. Right? Why? Because they found out, and their brain started making the association of like, oh, like going to the gym, I can actually kind of enjoy it, and it helps me not get all of this huge pain that I would normally get. So that means this is enjoyable, and then you can use little tricks and hacks, and of course some things will be more enjoyable to you naturally than others, and you can tap into that as well. But really, flipping and making it more conscious, the pain pleasure balances, and writing it out, projecting that future. Okay, what is it really going to be like? And most people never do that. Like, they don't want to look at that, right? Because it's really uncomfortable.
Well, I suppose what people also need to understand is that it's not a choice of doing it or not doing it. It's a choice of doing it consciously or doing it unconsciously. And if you're doing it unconsciously, then you're just being driven by your fears and avoiding whatever pain in the moment is available. And so the process of making something conscious isn't a process of doing something that you can otherwise avoid.
Yeah.
It's just taking control of what's already happening, isn't it?
Yep.
I think I'll speak from my own perspective. For a long time, I underestimated the power of my own mind to create the emotional state that I needed or wanted. I just was running on autopilot, feeding in, garbage in, garbage out, as the programming saying goes, that if you're consuming a whole lot of nonsense, then that's what you're thinking about, and then that's what's generating, because your thoughts generate your feelings, and your feelings generate your actions. And so you need to be the first stage of changing your action is changing your thoughts, because if you have thoughts that are constructive, they are going to create the feelings that are also constructive. And the feelings are going to create the actions that are constructive. Yeah, I think it's so easy for people to underestimate just how powerful their brain is, and they don't realize that it's already happening. Like them, is no, there's not necessarily a whole lot going on in my head. No, your brain is creating. Like you just don't know about it yet.
Yeah, your brain's doing it.
Your brain is doing it. Your brain is those feelings of anxiety or those feelings of unworthiness. They're self-generated. It's not it is a reflection of the world, but it's not. It's your reflection of the world. It's not something that's being put onto you. It's what you're actually doing. And when you realize that, I'm creating these negative feelings in myself, then if you've got the power to create the negative feelings, you must have the power to create the positive feelings as well. Or the negative feelings in a constructive way to avoid the pain that you want to further down the line. So when you're talking about bringing the pain from the future into the present, I suppose that's, and as well as the pleasure, I suppose that's what you were doing when you were a teenager with having watched the videos of humanity. What was the title of the
Restoring Hope in Humanity?
Restoring Hope in Humanity, of like seeing a version of yourself that you could be, of helping people and bringing the pleasure from that into the present.
Yeah, so obviously I had no idea about pain, pleasure, and how it works, or any of this. I had no clue. But it worked for me almost, let's say, by accident, but my brain made the associations unconsciously, right? Oh, if I keep living the same way, then that's going to be really ultimately painful. Like, and obviously suicide, that's really painful to think about, right? So I'm like, I don't want to do that. But if I change this, then I can have all this pleasure and I can avoid all this pain and I can have this pleasure as well. Oh, amazing. And then the running was more of a conscious decision. And I was like, okay, this is going to be the one thing that like is going to be one of my main vehicles of like, that I'm going to stick to. And I've been doing it for a decade. So, it obviously worked.
And how often do you go running, and how many kilometers do you run now?
Now it's like every other day or every 3 days I run about 20.
Around 20, so almost half a marathon.
Yeah.
And how much did you start out running when you were 13, 14, 15?
500 meters at first, 1 kilometer. It would mostly be like, I didn't care about distances at all.
Right.
It was more so just get myself out and do 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I looked at it as time.
Okay.
Back then, right? And even like when I started going out for more longer, like in the mornings, it was always like just super short, like less than 20-minute run.
Mm.
And I didn't care. And in my little hometown, I just created this little loop that I ran around the hometown, like along the river and then cross the bridge and then come back, right? And it took me like, 20 minutes, 16 minutes or so. And that was the only thing. I didn't care about any races or distances or whatever. And then it became a natural progression.
Active guy for run.
Yeah, but then became a natural progression because I'm running all the time, so might as well, like. And then my teacher was like, "Hey, you're really good at running." I'm like, "Yeah, I run all the time." Like, okay, you want to go do this race, and you want to go do this, and so I got more involved, kind of, because of that. But I didn't care.
Right.
I didn't care. I was just doing it for me, like for my mental health and for my confidence. Again, it was my confidence building and confidence protection habit.
So even though the goal wasn't to go and do other activities and all the rest of it, you were just seeing it as a core activity of your development. It still led to opportunities to socialize and to, I suppose, further prove your physical capabilities and that sort of, boost.
Elevate my status and whatever, right? But for me, it was really like a core habit, like a core foundation. I was like, okay, this is going to be the foundation that brings me out. Like, if everything else falls apart again, if I just do my run, like, I know I'm going to be able to fix anything. And like that, and like looking back, a very powerful association to make as a young teen, right?
Incredibly powerful.
And it definitely worked, right? And now, like, even fast forward, being in situations where, oh my God, like business isn't working, relationship is fucked up, like fiance is having a panic attack here, business isn't working here, I don't know how I'm gonna pay rent here, okay, what are we gonna eat next week, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I'm gonna go for a run, and I run, and I like out of the state, I can solve the problem and I get insights, right? So like it's become a big tool for solving any other problems in my life as well.
Right. It's like a grounding point for it.
I kind of joke around when people ask me like, hey, so what do you do when you feel like really lost and overwhelmed? I just run away. And they're like, what? Yeah, I literally run away. But like, you know, I just run and I run for like 15 kilometers and then I come back. I'm like, I know what to do. I know how to solve things.
Right.
Because like I've removed myself. It changes your physiology, it changes your state, it changes your biochemistry, right? Like all the stress hormones go away, the endorphins, the testosterone, all of the good hormones.
Gets you into your body.
Exactly, right? So there's a lot of proof to it scientifically and why it works as well. Because back then again, I just had no idea. I just know it made me feel good afterwards.
Yeah,
it sucked to. Before. And for a long time I told people that I have a really love-hate relationship with running, because like I hate pushing myself to go, but I love it when I do it.
I think that's the case with most really tough physical activity, isn't it? It's like, well, love the feeling afterwards or even during, once you've gotten into it.
Yeah.
The beginning of like, okay, I've got to go and do this thing. Yeah. It's just so difficult.
So it definitely became like a huge cornerstone.
Right. So you think like for people, we keep using the example of running, of course, but it doesn't have to be running, but it should be something physical, like physical activity.
Absolutely.
Right.
It has, like now, I think I'm going to do, later on, I'm going to do more studies and more concepts, I guess, into the proof of a confidence building habit and what really are like the little things that make it up. But even for a long time, I believe that it's like the physical strength transfers into mental and social strength and all this as well.
Yeah.
So the physical strength and confidence transfers into other kinds of confidence. And also just the act of pushing yourself, of doing something that's uncomfortable, makes you feel really good.
Right.
Right? And it has to be physically, because when your body is physically strong, you can be much more stronger mentally. But if your body is weak, then it's pretty hard to be mentally strong.
I think part of the reason that it's so useful is because it's very tangible, it's very measurable. Like it's harder to say, oh, I'm psychologically strong, in a given situation, because that's kind of ethereal and it's kind of out there. But if you go for a run, it's like, oh, I've just run X number of kilometers. That you can't argue with that. You can't kind of debate, oh, well, am I stronger or weaker because I've done that? Like, no, you've just achieved that very physical, very measurable milestone. And I suppose that's why some form of physical activity is so useful for that, because you just can't argue with it, along with all of the other, the chemical reactions and things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're trying to just be mentally strong without having that physical base, I know for myself, it's very easy to get lost you just get lost in your thoughts, and then you're kind of just, you start being bombarded by all the negative stuff. It's very kind of hard to say, oh, well, I'm mentally fit.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's something for people to sort of take note of. If you're struggling, just like start with some physical activity. For me, it's not running. For me, it's going to the gym. I had the same sort of feeling. It's like, I want to go to the gym because I want to feel good about my body. I want to be strong. I want to look strong. And you can start, I suppose a lot of the time it does start out with more of an ego thing. It's like,
superficial.
Yeah. But that's okay. Yeah. Like, I find that, if you've got nothing else to hold on to, then accepting, okay, I just need to feel good about myself physically. Start with that point, and then it develops from that. Because, like you say, you start to recognize that it's also a mental habit rather than just a physical thing. I'd love to hear more about the ways that you apply what you've learned throughout your life into the business side of things. Maybe a little bit, you can just share, you're a digital nomad. How long have you been a digital nomad for now?
A little over 2.5 years.
A little over 2.5 years. And you've been based primarily where? What region of the world?
Primarily Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia, okay. And what I'm actually really curious, because what made you decide to become a digital nomad, and what made you decide to come to Southeast Asia as a digital nomad?
So what made me want to become a digital nomad was, again, YouTube.
So inspiration.
Yeah, YouTube videos, and same as before with, personal development in general, and overcoming anxiety and mental health. But it was similar, wow, people are doing that, heavily, and it just seemed amazing, and it seemed so crazy and ridiculous, and like a dreamy lifestyle, which of course reality, we know is different. But it seemed amazing, and I mean, it's still a dream, right?
Yes.
But it's, not always feels like that, let's put it that way. And that's another mental strength that you have to practice. But yeah, so it was like, wow, this seems really amazing. I had no idea that, this was even possible, that people would do something like this. And it really caught my attention. And I've already had a little bit of experiences of just going out of my country.
Okay.
And, let me backtrack a little bit. A part of how I overcame social anxiety was speaking to people on chat to learn basic social interactions.
Okay.
In the very beginning, right? Because I was like, I cannot call anybody. I cannot do voice message. I cannot, have a full conversation like this. But I can chat anonymously. So I downloaded these few apps, and it just connected you with like a chat buddy from anywhere in the world. So I was sitting in my little room in the Czech Republic, right? And I was chatting with somebody in Turkey, and I was chatting with somebody in Asia, or I was chatting with somebody in Brazil, right? And I was just like, wow, like all of these amazing people from all over the world that I'm having a conversation with. And it was just really awesome to me, like to see how, people have it, what they have in common, and what differences we have, and how we have different languages, and try and figure it all out. So it was already like, I started developing, thanks to this, like a little bit more of a global mindset, let's say.
Okay.
And like just being curious. And curiosity has been like a big factor and a big virtue, I guess, or a value of mine.
Right.
That drove me into anything, right? Being just curious, like how do you live? What's happening there? And so that was like an experience since maybe I started doing this since I was like 14, right? Just chatting with people from all over the world and practicing my English and whatnot. And then the second, when I was 17, my high school offered like an exchange program to go to, I'm from the Czech Republic, to go to Budapest, which is in Hungary, for 3 weeks for like an internship and live and work there.
Yeah.
It was like my first experience of like not going on a vacation to the beach and stay at the hotel and that's it, but actually go and like live in a foreign city, in a foreign country, and like get more integrated into the life, and like how is it to work there and all this.
This was during high school?
Yeah.
Right.
And I loved it. I think it was an Erasmus program.
Okay.
I loved it. I thought before then, I hated big cities. I thought I hated, all of this.
Well, most of you are suffering from anxiety.
Da.
So it was like a worst nightmare.
And then we moved there, and I really loved it. Like, it was amazing 3 weeks, like some of the best 3 weeks of high school for me, right? And just living in a bigger city, living in Budapest, and figuring out, okay, this is the tram that I take to work every day, and we did some like basic electronic work, like really internship, and it was really great. And so that was my first experience of like, oh, I'm temporarily or for some time living and working and integrated into like a normal life in a foreign country, and this is amazing, right? So that was like, I didn't know that digital nomads existed or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just an exchange program. But that was like, I had that experience already.
Right.
So I knew that I already enjoyed it very much. And then later on, I got an opportunity to work in Germany for like a summer job. And a part of it was also like, going to Germany would make me 4 times more money in a month than living in the Czech, or trying to have a summer job in the Czech Republic. So yeah,
It's a big upside.
that's how I paid for my driver's license and whatnot. But anyways, right? So, of course, some of those motivations were there as well. But again, like, it was an amazing month living in a foreign country and figuring new things out, and learning how the life is in a totally new city, in a totally new, like, and a different job and all this. I loved it. And so after that, I was like, whoa. When I found that people work online and can live 1 month here and 3 months here and 4 months here, I'm like, really? That sounds amazing. And so, yeah, like I was definitely thinking of like the living experience already based on the experiences that I had before. And then it felt impossible, right? Like, who am I to build an online business? You know, I'm just a little kid from a factory class working family and you know, whatever. Nobody's ever built a business. We've never made more than X amount of money. Like, nobody knows what's happening. Where everybody starts saying that I'm crazy, that it's never going to work and whatnot. But then my advantage was that talking to girls or talking to strangers in public seemed absolutely impossible. Like, if you told the 12-year-old me, hey, in 5 years or in 4 years, you're going to be talking to people and talking to strangers on buses and in parks.
In a second language, or you already
No, my language or second language, that wouldn't matter. I would be like, absolutely no chance. Like,
Yeah.
what planet are you from? Like, ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And now I was doing it. And now it was a part of my life. Like, just taking a bus to school, I see somebody who looks interesting, I just walk up to them and like, hey, I really like your hat, you know, how's it today? What school are you going to? In my language.
Yes.
But I was doing it. It was like a part of my life. So something that seemed and felt impossible back in the past now was a part of my life. So now I was like, oh, digital nomad and making money online with a business sounds ridiculously impossible. But, you know, I've done impossible things before, so maybe, and that's how I kind of started working on it. And so that's the first piece of why I became and how the beginnings was. And then Southeast Asia, well, actually, you've met Jeremy as well, right? He was on your podcast recently. That was...
Check out the last episode of the podcast. He's Jeremy Green.
Yeah, he's a good friend. Yeah. He's a good friend. And so I was living in Amsterdam. I quit my job and I still had my apartment for a while. And I started traveling around Europe and had a little base in Amsterdam still. And then he came by. He came from Argentina, I think. And he was like, yeah, I've been doing this nomad life. You know, I've been traveling for like a year and a half or whatnot. And I'm doing Europe for a bit for the summer. And then I'm going to Southeast Asia. Okay. After. And I'm like, wow, I've been thinking about going to Asia as well. You know, I've heard about it before, seen it on videos and had some conversations and whatnot. And I really want to have the culture shock as well. It's like, what is it really like there?
Yes.
You know,
Completely.
I wanted to leave the continent for sure. And he was like, yeah, so I'm traveling around Europe for a bit and then I'm going over there. You want to join? I'm like, yeah. And so, yeah, that was it. And I just tagged along to travel around Europe a little bit, and then I tagged along to come to Southeast Asia, and really loved it. Found a girl, as you know, as well. I met Julia, and decided to stay, and then left for a little bit, went back to Europe, went back to US, and lived in Mexico for a bit, and we did the whole long distance thing, and came back now again, and staying here.
It's nice. But so, I mean, I think it's always inspiring to see, like, you couldn't have possibly known where you'd end up, and you can't possibly know where you'll end up in 5 years. But if you're open to possibilities and, like you said, you're curious about different ways of doing things, for anybody out there who's thinking about starting or thinking about trying something new, like, just try. You can't predict the future, and you shouldn't try to. But if you have an idea of, you have sort of the aspirational goal of the kind of person you want to be, and then you have these things that interest you, that you're curious about, types of places to live and all the rest of it, that you can just start and see where it takes you, and like just be open to the adventure that might come from, or that will inevitably come from it, you know. Because you just, you know, I'm here as I would never have guessed if I had looked at my life 10 years ago that I would be here either, you know. And just by being curious and going, oh, I really like the idea of that, and I like the idea of who I could become by pursuing that goal, you end up doing amazing things and being in amazing places and meeting amazing people just by doing it one step at a time. Like we mentioned at the very beginning, it's the same process. Take it one step at a time. Don't think about 10 steps down the road. Bring it back into, okay, it would be so nice if I was a digital nomad. okay, what would be the first step to doing that?
Yeah.
Like with the, we'll wrap up very shortly, but with regards to people starting a business, because I find that there's lots of people out there, myself included, where we want to start a business, or somebody out there wants to start a business, but they think, oh, well, I don't know how. What advice would you give to somebody who's got an idea or doesn't have an idea of the business but wants to start a business? What is the kind of the first step psychologically, I suppose, to get to?
Feed your mind first. Right?
Feed your mind.
Feed your mind. So exactly what people are doing now, if somebody's listening to this or somebody's watching this, they're feeding their mind with extra ideas, right?
Right.
And the more you feed your mind with these positive and constructive ideas, then the more your own brain will start coming out with new ideas and new things. Like, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do this, right? Get yourself around the environment. Try and meet people, right? Be curious, right? Okay, how does this work? What can I do? And if you don't really know, find out, right? Just find out, and you will start to come up with ideas and then start trying things.
Yeah.
And if you already have an idea, but you're struggling with like, okay, what do I do or how do I do it? Most often the problem isn't really the how, it's more so the mindset and the belief. And maybe a part of you believes that you're not good enough yet, or I had huge problems on that. We could, go
spend another couple of hours.
a whole another deeper conversation on that, right? But first, figure out what you want, why you want it, and start looking at why you are good enough rather than why you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Because our brain will always naturally go to us, I'm not good enough because of this or this, this is my disadvantage, this is my disadvantage. Start looking at your advantages and your assets.
Yeah.
And out of those, you can start create more positive ideas for business and what you can do. And as a whole, I guess like a mindset of business, I like to look at it as a video game. Anything like personal growth or life or even business specifically, it's like a video game, right? So if you're level 10, if your end goal here is to have a business and travel the world and whatnot, okay, what are the 10 levels? What are the quests that I have to complete? And who do I have to become? How do I have to level up my character? What skills do I have to work on? What assets do I have to require? Right? Like, can I gain the XP points so that I can level up in the game of life with a goal of a business, right?
Right.
And you might find out, level 1 is meet some business people and meet some digital nomads and find out what they did, right?
Yeah.
Start a podcast and do interviews so you have an excuse for talking to people. Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like, I want to create a high-level produced podcast, but it's like, okay, you just have the conversation, or you message people, right? You go into the groups, you go attend the events, and you become open-minded to that, and then you start trying things.
Open-minded. I think that's like the key, isn't it? Just being open to opportunities and possibilities, and like getting out of your own way just to be, okay, I'm just going to see where this goes and just take it one step at a time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it might sound really simplistic, or you might say, I've heard this before, or whatever.
But it is simple, is it?
But you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've heard it before. Are you doing it? Are you living it? Uh-oh.
Yeah, maybe start there.
So it's like, you don't have to wait for like a secret hack or the special business model that's going to change everything.
It's all bullshit anyway.
Exactly.
There is no secret.
It's scam, bro.
Yeah. It's just taking it one step at a time, isn't it? Being open. I think that's certainly something that I've learned through my history in business as well. Is like, if you go into an interaction with another person or an opportunity, and you're just completely open to where it might take you, maybe it doesn't take you anywhere, maybe something pops up. If you go in with that attitude of, I'm just going to see where this goes, and when an opportunity comes up, just say yes to it and see where that goes, and without trying to think too far in the future. Again, you don't want to try and think, I can't see how this is going to help me in the next step, because you have absolutely no idea. I've had so many interactions where
meet up for a coffee with somebody, and then they go, oh yeah, by the way, I'm doing this, and I go, oh, that's really interesting, and I just go along and you know, maybe it's an opportunity that they've presented. I take that, and it's not necessarily something that is directly important to what I think I'm supposed to be doing, but you go down that route, and then that somehow leads in a way that's actually beneficial long term. And you just don't know. You can't predict the future. All you can do is be open to opportunities and to chase them a little bit. You know, just follow the breadcrumbs, I suppose. Yeah, and see where it takes you. It might take you to Southeast Asia and coaching online.
And I think one last thing that I would add to this, I guess, as a business mindset, if you don't know anything about this, all of business is about solving problems for other people, right? So you can start looking at, okay, what kind of problems can I solve for other people? And specifically get yourself into the environment. I'll give you like this most specific, easiest example. My fiance recently started a podcast booking service as a business, right? As a new venture. And the reason why she started, the reason why she even came up with the idea is because, you know, I've already had a business and I've been doing this. And she was surrounded by people like me, right? And I was like, hey, like, could you help me as like a little bit of an assistant, let's say, try and help find podcasts that I can go on as a guest, right? And she did that for a few months, and she was like, I think I could do this for other people as a business as well, right?
Yeah.
And so that solves a problem for people, for other business owners, right? But she came up with it because she was in the environment.
Yeah.
She was in the communities. And so she was surrounded by all of it. So her brain started coming up with the ideas of, oh, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do this. Oh, this is a problem that I think I could solve for other people, right? And so if you get yourself into the environment, you feed your mind with the right things, you just get into the communities, you know, you get yourself surrounded by the people, you will figure out the business idea, where your specific little thing might be.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't know anything at all, if you really, like, I don't know what business I should be doing. And if you have some sort of an idea of, like, maybe I want to be a coach, or maybe I want to do this, or maybe I want to do some courses, maybe I would like to teach people about this, something you already have had an idea, but you're not doing it yet, then it's definitely a problem if you feel like you're not good enough, or you're too perfectionist, or you're procrastinating, whatnot. So that's a little bit of a different period. But if you really don't know, just get yourself in the environment, and I think we'll figure something out.
I think also, like, what I found quite useful is you feed yourself with the right stuff. You get inspired by what other people are doing, but then don't look to other people to copy exactly what they're doing. Rather, use that as inspiration, and then just allow yourself to sit with those thoughts, because then your mind, your own creative faculties start to generate ideas of their own. And then you just start, if you sit with those sorts of thoughts, and meditation is a great way, but meditating, people overcomplicate what meditation is. If you just, instead of when you wake up, and instead of grabbing your phone, if you just wake up and sit and think, right, what are problems out there? Your mind just starts generating ideas. It's a practice, and when you start paying attention to those ideas, something might pop up that you think, oh yeah, that's worthwhile pursuing. And just start from there. Like, feed yourself with the right stuff. Allow yourself time to think. Allow yourself time, your subconscious, to start pinging ideas, and then go from there, and just start, choose something that's popped up and find out a little bit more about it, and then you can, take it from there, and don't think about what the next 10 steps are, what's your business plan, all the rest of it. That can come later.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ondra. I really appreciate it. And if people want to hear more about what you're teaching, where can they find you? Because I think there's a lot of good information that you're putting out there. So hopefully there's somewhere that's...
So best place as of now, just like I have an overview, is my main Instagram, which is the handle is RoboHumanist.
Okay.
RoboHumanist.
Right, I'll put a link of that.
Yeah, put a link in that as well. So just, you can just follow me and see what's up there, and then there's some links towards like the mental health side, and then towards the business side as well. If you're in a situation where you want to start a business and you like kind of have an idea, but you feel like, oh, maybe I don't know exactly what to do, or maybe I'm not feel like I'm good enough yet, do this exercise, right? Write again, take a journal, write on the...
Get a journal, guys.
Get a journal. Write why I'm good enough to do this as a business on the top, and try and come up with 10 reasons
Of why you're good enough.
why you are good enough.
Okay.
And as little as possible, right? It doesn't matter. Even I really care about people, and I wanna help. That's a great reason to start a business, right? Because you care about people you help, right? And try and come up with 10, okay? And really push yourself. That's a stretch, right? Because your brain will always go, I'm not good enough because of this. I'm not. And you have unlimited reasons why you are not good enough. Find at least 10 why you are good enough. And then you can send it to me as a message on Instagram. And if you do that, I'll give you like a free gift that will help you get started and figure out more of the how. But first, you gotta take some action, right?
Yeah.
You gotta start doing this. So this is a great way to start countering that imposter syndrome or not good enough and building confidence in business.
Yeah, so consciously finding why you're capable. I love that. That's perfect. Well, there you go. Yeah, so, and you can send that through to direct message on Instagram, humanist or humanist. That's great. Link for that in the description. And what other, just before we go, what kind of content do you put on your Instagram, just so people have an idea?
So the Instagram content is more, well, at least this account is more so just mindset, travel, lifestyle, digital nomad, stuff.
So basically, what we've been talking about, you create videos around.
Yes, especially what we talked about in the second half.
Okay.
And then I have a separate account for the people who are like struggling with social anxiety and want to do all that. Like, I'm separating those a little bit more instead of talking about 2 different topics in one account. And confusing people, it's more separate.
Okay, great. Well, you'll see that on Instagram. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
See you in the next episode.